Or and if you guys will forgive me, I'm going to eat a little bit while we work. I literally just got off my bike like 20 minutes ago, so I'm if I don't, I will get grumpy, and then my family will not like me. I won't get grumpy with y'all, I'll treat you guys awesome, but I'm just kidding. Hey, we got to have a little fun. It's 9 in the morning, and pretty much everyone, as far as I know, should be pretty close, if not finished with hours. So my first question today is anyone worried about that? I'm just curious. I have spoken to a few people already, but does anyone worry about their hours in any way? That's the first question. Okay. Okay. And you can always contact me offline too. I've already gotten a bunch of people's hours reports in and assignments and stuff, which is fine. Um, I think is this the seventh week or eighth week? I can't remember. I don't remember what week it is. Graduation's on the 17th, I think. Okay. I'm actually going to be there, which will be fun. I didn't get to go in the fall. Um, so today's pretty flexible. Um, and so there's a couple things I want to do. I wanted to ask about hours, but there's a couple things I want to do. I've gotten a ton of questions about like they're not little things, but like kind of different things over the last 2 weeks. And so I want to address a few of those, and then any other questions you guys have. And this typically happens this time of the semester. I get a ton of questions about. I don't know if you guys remember, if anyone's here the first class, I said I'm going to talk about certain things, and then everyone's going to forget, and they're going to ask me at the very end, and that's kind of what's happened, which is totally normal. It happens every time. As you get closer to graduating, and you've taken your exam, you're getting ready to do your application for associate licensure. You're just trying to get everything in order. So I'm going to try to address that, like what you need to do and kind of steps you need to take. Um, I'm not the only expert in that field by any means. Some of you have already done a lot of that work, and so please feel free to chime in too. Um, um, so probably the top question I'm getting right now is about the state practicum form that you'll need to fill out and include in your application. There's a state form that it's just one sheet, and you will fill it out, and it basically lets the state know you completed your practicum. Instead of turning in all your hours to them, they just want that one sheet. Amerton signs it, so that actually the dean of academic affairs is the one that signs it, but you can't get it signed until you graduate. So you can't do this until after the 17th. So typically, what will happen in in the order of this is pretty set, right? So I'll turn my grades in on the 17th. Actually, I'll like all your grades I'll turn in, and then you'll graduate, and then uh, as soon as they get all the grades entered, which usually they do over the weekend, that next week, the week following graduation, sometime, usually like Wednesday, Thursday, your transcripts would be ready. So you could grab those, and then you would be able to send that form in to Gina Termenstein, who's in the academic dean's office. And you'll have to fill it out. If you don't fill it out, she'll send it back to you. So make sure you fill it out. And literally all they're going to do is sign it. What they're doing is saying, oh, okay, they have completed all their academic work and their practicum work, which I'm saying, yes, they have, right? And then he'll sign it, and then Gina will send it right back to you. She'll email it back to you. So you'll have that form, and that's just part of your application process. That is not an Amberton form. That's a state form. It doesn't have anything to do with us. Um, Additionally, I did get a couple of questions about once you take the exam, uh, Like, does Amberton need the score? We don't need that score. I mean, I'd love to know if you pass. That's awesome. I'd love to know that, but we don't need the score at all. Again, that's a state requirement, not an Amberton requirement for that exam. So those are two of the biggest questions I've gotten over the past 2 weeks. I would say. So first of all, does that make sense to everyone? Do you have any question about what I just said?
I have a quick question. So I
You
have
have 10 seconds to ask the question. I'm just kidding.
I have the form already printed out. I thought because it said that my supervisor could sign it. So that's not good enough. My LPC supervisor.
I know it says that, but it's a little misleading
Yeah.
because they need to know your supervisor only, like, I'm making this up. Let's say you only worked at that site for 10 weeks, not the full, both practicums, let's say, which
Yeah.
happens a lot. They're literally just signing over the hours you just worked with them, right? When we sign it, we're saying you did all your hours, everything is complete.
Yeah.
I totally understand because it's confusing. The
Yeah.
wording of it is very confusing,
Mm.
but because honest, if I'm here's one of the reasons why it says that in a program, certain programs that have a clinic on their campus, you'll do all your clinical hours on campus with
Mhm.
one supervisor, and then they will sign it. You know what I'm saying? Like that's usually Amberton doesn't have a clinic, so you guys are like all over the Metroplex or all over the state, some of you. So it's like a one-stop shop. When Amberton signs it, you're good. That's it. Does that make sense?
Yep. Okay. Boo. I thought I had like everything done. But
Yeah, it's okay. You can still my daughter's calling me for some reason. You can still well just send us a new form because Gina's gonna look at it and she's gonna send it back to you. So just do a
yeah.
new form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to set you guys up for success here to get it done. So yeah, I know it's confusing. The wording on it's confusing. I get it.
Question.
Yep.
I have a question related to what you were just talking about. On the form, uh, it says supervisor credentials / title. And okay, first it says practicum internship supervisor. I could show my screen if that would help.
I know what it says.
Okay.
I've been dealing with the form for 10 years. I
All
got it.
right.
I
I
got you.
just didn't know if anybody else would know it. So it says practicum internship supervisor name.
Mhm.
And that uh, is that Gina or is that, I'm sorry if that's
So
a dumb question, but
no, it's not. It's not. So
then under
where
it says supervisor credentials /
mhm.
title.
Right, right.
So at first I was putting your name in there,
Mhm.
practicum internship supervisor name. I didn't think it would be talking about the site supervisor. And then there's a statement that says, I certify the applicant, blah, blah, blah. And then under that, it has a line that says practicum internship supervisor
Yep.
or a school official. So I didn't know if those were the same people in those two parts of the form.
So when you fill this out, the
Mhm.
first part says practicum internship supervisor name
Right.
in print, right? If
Yep.
you have that's the place where you did your practicum.
So that's going to be my field supervisor.
Correct.
Okay.
Where it says I certify, it says practicum internship supervisor or school official signature.
Uh-huh.
That's where we will sign. Amberton will sign.
Okay.
Okay.
So that line I don't do anything with.
You don't do anything with that line. Everything
Okay.
above that line you fill out. Some people
Okay.
might have more than one supervisor, potentially.
Okay.
Like some of you guys have multiple sites. Like I know some people have multiple sites.
Okay, thank you. And the other question I had was regarding the place where you put in your hours. So, do we can count the supervision hours as in just lump them in with the indirect?
Correct.
Okay, so that was I put them like in parentheses. I said, I have this many direct hours
Yep.
plus this many indirect, including I kind of broke out the supervision separately. So I'll just add those two together
Yeah. Yeah.
and put the total.
This, yeah, yeah. Don't overthink it.
Okay.
Just put the total hours. Yep. Direct hours, right? Anything when you're one-on-one with the client, that's your direct, right? Anything else can be indirect. Does that make sense? Like I did 120 hours direct with clients. I did 400 total. So 280 are indirect, whatever your total is, depends on how many you did. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the direct hours would be include your supervision hours, and it would include your 80 hours from Amberton.
So the indirect would be your supervision, anything you did writing notes, and your class time at Amberton, which should be 80 hours.
Okay,
Direct counseling hours are direct hours you spend with the client.
got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
And that's the same as you go into your associate license. It's the same thing, right? So the reason why I'm saying that is kind of important because if you use your supervision as direct and you're not getting all the hours you need. Does that make sense? Like your direct hours only count when you're doing a group or an individual session or whatever session work you do.
Yeah, yeah. And on the form that I've been tracking with, I've separated supervision hours from indirect hours. So I had three columns: direct,
Mm-hmm.
indirect, and supervision. So
Mm-hmm.
so it's clear that I want to add those two numbers together to get the total indirect.
For this form, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've changed, excuse me. I don't know if they've changed on the actual license application. When you finish your hours, I don't know if they've changed it to ask how many supervision hours you get. It's okay to keep them separate. Like as you're gathering hours now, it's okay to keep that separate. Like I actually used to keep like group hours separate or individual or family or whatever. I used to do that too. You can do it that way. It really just depends on how you want to organize it. It's smart to have a way to do it though, for sure.
I tracked them separately, but then for this form, uh, it wasn't clear. So I'll add them together for this form.
Correct. That's right.
All right,
That's
thanks.
right. Yep. Yep. I know the wording on the form, this state form is confusing. But as long as you get us to sign it, you want to have Amberton sign it. To be quite honest, well, I hate to say it that way. I don't know what's going on at the state level anymore. Sometimes they send stuff back for no reason, I feel like. Sometimes they don't. So I can't speak intelligently about, what they're going to do or not do. And the LMFT folks and the LPC folks are two different sets of people too, and they do things a little differently. So
So
these are little
will
things you're going to learn as you enter into the state world.
how will we know exactly when it's okay to send this to Gina?
You can send this after graduation anytime.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Because that means your degree is conferred, right? Like once you graduate, because once they enter the grades too, that starts the whole transcript process too, that kind of thing. So, like once you get, it just takes them a little while to get all the grades in because I have like all everybody's grades, right? Not just y'all's, but everyone that's.
And then one more question. Sorry, the
That's okay.
the transcript that has to go directly from So that has to be like a sealed thing. Is that right?
Is that right? Does anybody know? Has anybody seen the rules? I think it does, but I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah, it does. And you can go ahead and fill out your transcript request and just put hold until degree complete. So I've already turned that into Amberton. But yeah, so then Amberton will mail your transcript directly to the board.
And they'll seal it. They'll put a little, it's got a little seal on the envelope, so they'll see it. It's kind of interesting because some states now are doing electronic transcripts, but Texas is not. So, like I'm renewing my license in 2 other states right now. And when I did the first time, I was sent them a paper copy of the transcript, and they were like, I don't want this. I want the electronic. So it's kind of interesting what's going on. So
So
I have a
Sarah,
question.
Sarah, thank you, by the way. So sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Richard. Hey, Sarah, I was going to ask you, what is the name of that state practicum form that you, did you just get off the Texas Behavioral Health
Yep.
website?
Yep, the form's on their website. So if you just click the specific link for counselors, it gives you
Right
the
here.
whole list. Yes. Yeah, and it gives you the whole list of everything that they need. And then you just click it and you can download the form.
just disregard my name down here. I just did that to show people. But this is what the form looks like. Unless they've changed it, I'm assuming this is still the same one they've been using for at least 10 years.
And so, okay, question. I have a question. So on where it says the practicum internship supervisor name, y'all probably already said this while I was getting coffee, but is that where our site supervisor would sign?
Right.
Okay.
You just put their name. You just put their name down.
Oh, they don't have to
Yeah.
sign it. Just put
Nope.
down. Okay,
Just
good.
put their name down. Yep.
Perfect. Had another question too.
I'm only taking 1 question per student, Kara.
All right.
I'm just playing.
I
She
don't
knows I'm
remember.
kidding.
I think it's past me, but I wanted to say I did pass the exam.
Good
Thank
job.
the Lord. I'm a good test taker. Like I'm a better my test results don't reflect my intellect. I'm way better at taking tests than I am smart. And it was the hardest
That
test
can't be
I've ever
true. You're
taken.
super smart.
Yeah, right. Well, it was hard. It was hard as
Yeah.
crap.
It was so hard. Like
It
Yeah.
was.
and I studied like I felt so prepared. I was
Me
like,
too.
oh,
I
I'm
was
gonna go in here.
acing my
I know.
ass.
Oh,
The app I was making hundreds. I was like, Psh, I got this. And by the end of
yes.
the test, I was thinking, if I don't pass, it's not the worst thing in the world. Nobody has to know. My family won't care. They'll still love me. I'll just have to wait 3 months. That'll be the biggest downside. And I
Yeah.
was shocked that I passed.
Yeah,
But the
after the
app was
first
a good.
100 questions.
Did you?
Yeah,
What
I
app?
almost walked out after the first 100 questions.
What app did you use, Sarah?
What?
Which app did you have an
To
app?
study?
Yeah.
I studied on the app. I studied the purple book. I mean, I took the online test. I mean, like I did like
And it was
everything, and it was the hardest test I've ever taken. I was about to
yes.
cry, but I passed. It's over.
Yeah.
It's done.
It was such a relief for sure.
That test wasn't hard.
Well, you've got that PhD. It makes like that helps.
It doesn't help anything.
Richard, where did you do your practicum?
At Denton County MHMR.
Oh, okay. How was that?
Well, it was good. I was assigned to the intake group, which, as that went along, I realized I wasn't accumulating enough direct hours because, I was shadowing people on this rather complex computer process. And, that would take a couple of hours sometimes. And then you'd wait for another client. And sometimes I was getting 2 or 3 hours a day. So eventually I talked to my supervisor and we he assigned me to the CRU, which is CRU, the Crisis Resource Unit, where I was with clients all day long and there were group activities mainly. And so I started accumulating direct hours. But what I feel that I still need is one-on-one counseling. So that's a challenge. They don't have a lot of counseling going on where I was, So I think the crisis counselors, they have, they have some of those, but not a lot of direct, regular counseling.
We had a lot of regular counseling, but it was a crisis center, and it's like you would start to do therapeutic counseling, and 10 or 15 minutes in, it turns more into social services development. And I'm out in East Texas, and it's so limited. That was the most frustrating thing for me is, the services that these women need, and that the services they need are just not, I mean, from medical care to legal services to transportation to, it's been an eye opener, that's for sure. In a good way
And
though.
Kara, and just to give you some information, and I don't know what county you're in, but there's an agency, and there's an agency in every county. It's called the Aging and Disability Resource Center, and they can link them up with legal aid and things like that.
Oh, good to know. That's good to know. That was part of my, my supervisor told me that, I had to stay in my lane for one thing, but it's really frustrating because they would want you to refer within house to, the legal person, but the legal person, it's like dropping them into a black hole, you feel like it's not helping, but that's good to know. Would you mind sending that to me so I can, um,
Sure,
or
I'll drop it in the chat. Okay.
thank you. That's good. But yeah, it's good to be coming down the home stretch to for me, it's like the thing I learned the most was just how much I don't know, and how much I really want to find a a supervisor who, how can I say this right? Like, you don't know what you don't know until you realize you don't know something. And I don't know, just it would be nice to find a place to get some really, I guess though, is that where, or Dr. Bedard, is that where like getting into the certifications, is that where you're gonna get more expertise in kind of like, I mean, I do like the trauma counseling. I did have one client that was actually not living at the shelter who I was able to start doing trauma counseling with, but we kind of hit a wall too into my second practicum, because once we got to the point where I felt she could emotionally regulate, that we had developed a really great rapport, and we kind of started, I can't do EMDR. It wasn't available for her there. And so we were gonna do the desensitization, just talking through the trauma stuff, and, we did that one session, and then it was like she hit a wall. She's like, I can't go there anymore," and, I'm sure she'll come back at some point to therapy, but I don't know. Any thoughts on that? Like, how to, like, really develop your skills in that? You recently didn't you go to, you recently got certified in some type of trauma therapy, correct?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I've done a couple of different things. I'm certified in prolonged exposure therapy, uh, which I use.
And what is
Um,
that exactly? Like,
so um, so it's an exposure-based therapy, which basically means when you're working with someone, you're exposing them to potentially whatever their emotions were at the time of let's say an event, a traumatic event, let's say, in a way that brings them into the present instead of leaving them in the past. And so, excuse me, and there's different techniques that you would do. Like there's a lot of homework involved. So you would do, they're called in vivo. So when you would do, 15 to 20 different types of homework that are based on what's called a SUD scale from 0 to 100. Like say the event they rank, let's say they say this is 100, right? So it's the closer I get to the memory of that event or something that triggers that event, I'm 100.
Right.
And then 50 would be, 0 would be I'm just sitting here, everything's fine, I'm doing great. And then you want a 50 as a reference point. These are all reference points, and you want to give this homework in SUD scales that are above 50, like 50 to 60, 70 to 80, 80 to 90. You want to continue to add to that so that they're prolonged, so that their exposure is prolonged on purpose. One of the theories behind I'm going to give you guys like mounds of research in 5 minutes. One theory behind trauma is we want to avoid triggers. Human beings want to avoid triggers for sure. No one wants to go back through a trauma. That's obvious. At the same time, what we're really avoiding is the feeling that we had or the emotions that we had. And the same is true for like anxiety or, if you have social anxiety, it's the same thing. Avoidance is a great short-term strategy. It's horrible long-term strategy, right? So what you're basically doing is you're saying, let's try not to avoid this anymore. Because if you think about like an event happens, like it's a traumatic event happens. I'm talking about big T trauma. I'm not talking about someone cut you off while you're driving the car or someone said something inappropriate at work. I know I'm not trying to say those aren't important. I'm just saying that shouldn't take you out. Like watching someone die or being assaulted, like big T trauma, right? Like an event that's a big T trauma. When you have the event, wherever that is, you could have more than one, but if you have one, the emotions that are tied to that are sticky. So the emotions are tied to it. The events in the past, you've moved forward 5, 10, 20, 30 years. I've had many sessions with men who were sexually abused when they were 5 and they're 30 or 40, but the emotions are still sticky. So you're trying to unstick the emotion so that you can bring the emotions forward into the present. They never forget the trauma. You're not trying to help someone forget something and you're not trying to help them avoid it either. You're trying to expose them long enough so that the emotions can become unstuck. And you do several different things with it. One of the things you do is called an imaginal, where you have them tell the story of the trauma, but they're telling it in the present, not the past. For example, I'm waking up right now. I see someone in my room. I see them come to beside me, like in the present, like they're telling the story like in the present. And you have to keep reminding them, you know, to stay in the present. So, because you're bringing all that to the present. And all along, you're asking them, okay, what's your SUDS number? And most of the time, when they first start, it's 80, 90, 100. And this is where they don't like you as a therapist. You don't let them get out of it. You don't let them soothe. You don't teach them how to soothe at this point. You just keep encouraging them to keep going. And you're recording this whole thing. And after you're done with that session, they're supposed to listen to that recording once a day between sessions. Then, as you've done that 1 or 2, maybe 3 times, there's hot spots that come up. right? There's places where they get stuck or there something happens. You will start to pull those hot spots out and let them start going, oh, okay, yeah, this happened, then this happened. I have seen people go from 100 to 30 in 8 sessions. But you have to be trained. Like this particular one, you definitely need training. It was about a 30-hour. It's a 3-day training. And that's only one style. There's other ones. There's other
I
any
think I'm gonna
EMDR, like you mentioned,
yeah, I want to
and
do EMDR.
so there's multiple different types. But I think it's definitely beneficial for everybody to be trauma informed for sure. You know, you need to be trauma informed because we all have traumatic experiences of some kind. But this particular one really works best when there's an actual one event that you're working on. For example, like when kids have been, I'm making this up, like if you have a parentified client that as a child was turned into a parent, that's pretty traumatic too, even though that's not what they're thinking. But all of a sudden they're an adult and they're like, why is no one thinking like me? Why is this so hard? Um, why do I not want to be around people right now? Why all of a sudden do I hate people? Why all of a sudden is all this on my nerves? Or why all of a sudden do I just don't want to help people anymore? Like it can happen like that. So that would not be like one trauma, but you would do maybe exposures with them to help them. Like I've done exposures with people where this is going to sound weird, but go to Costco on a Saturday in the middle of the day and stay in there for 30 minutes. Don't buy anything. Let people walk behind you, all around you. Go stand in there. Don't go off to the corner. Go into the main places. Go buy something and then turn around and get in the line and take it back. When you go into a restaurant, don't sit way off to the side. Sit in the middle with your back towards the door. Like even some of you might right now, even think that feels right. So that would be an exposure, right, that you would do with people. So, and the hard part about this is if they continue to do the exposures past the treatment, they will continue to get even better and better and better. So it was first developed quite a while ago, but it's kind of been refined over time. And so anyway, that's I just gave you mounds of research in like 5 or 10 minutes here. Does that help? Does that make sense? Yeah, good question. Yeah, trauma focus would be good. Carol, are you in Smith County? Wood?
I'm in Wood County,
Okay.
but I don't know what I'm gonna do. I may try to find something in Dallas and stay at my sister's, just to I don't really want a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, but I can't think of any other way to get the hours in within, I don't wanna I'd like to get fully licensed in at least 3 years, 2, 3 years. I don't wanna wait the whole so I don't know what I'm gonna do. Don't know.
Yeah, you were working at a women's
It was a
facility?
crisis center, yes, and it was an eye opener. I mean, I had a young woman who's 23, who's DACA, who's graduated high school, very intelligent, and now what does she do? She can't go to college, she has no job,
Mhm,
she's not legal. It's
mhm.
I have a 50-something-year-old with no health insurance and severe, severe dental issues that maybe I mean, it's like to the point where she has a gum disease so bad it's life-threatening, I think. It's been 3 months of trying to find health services for her. I have a lady who was sex trafficked from the time she was 18, like, was in an organized sex trafficking ring, so I learned a lot about that. A lady with delusions who think, she's I do think she is deluded, but then again, it's, just because 'cause you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get like, there's things that she's been through and um, some relevance maybe to her paranoia and where to go with her where she can feel safe and
Yeah.
it's I mean that side of things has been eye-opening. I love the work. I love being there. Like I definitely want to do that kind of work, but it kind of makes me want to go to law school more than like I'm thinking maybe I'll do counseling and pay for a law degree so I can really help people because there's just so much injustice, social injustice within that population. Like, and I know it's a microcosm of our society as a whole, but just because that's true doesn't mean it's not something we need to really be working on. And these ladies have no one. They have no one. Thank God the shelter is there, but it's like it's not great.
How
You know,
long can they stay there, Cara?
well, technically it's a 90-day stay, but this particular one, they're really, you know, the people there are very kind-hearted, caring people. And so as long as they're not making trouble, like if they don't have a severe psychotic disorder or anything like that, they'll let them kind of stay on until they can figure something out. But there's 3 of my 4 that are at the shelter right now are past their date and trying to figure it out, where to go. Um,
I didn't catch the name of the place. Sorry. What's it?
it's the Safety Crisis Center in Mount Pleasant. They have offices in Sulphur Springs, Mount Pleasant, Paris. They really struggled during COVID. It's grant funded primarily, and so they lost a load of funding and their numbers went down, and so they changed directors and they're slowly rebuilding. I may volunteer. They don't have a big enough caseload. They've got 2 counselors now, and the caseload is not really big enough for 3. I don't think I want to work there anyway, but I would like to volunteer maybe some
You know,
evenings.
part of the things that there's a couple things that are working against mental health um, at all levels. If you're super wealthy or ultra poor, everything in between. There's a couple things working against it. It's not as much stigmatized as much as it used to be, which is good. There's a less stigma for sure, but everything is politicized at this point, right? So, like you just said DACA, you have a kid. That is a political word now, right? That's all of a sudden can we talk about that, or is it okay to treat that, or like there's these questions now that we used to not have. Kara and I grew up in the same part of Texas, and like there's dairy farms all over the place, and you know that was just part of life, having people that were immigrants. I mean, I went to school with
But
them. I was just that's just life, right? No, but not now. You have to be careful. You feel like you have to be careful, and unfortunately, the folks like you're talking about are kind of on the lower end. The priority's lower for them. But the second thing that's really working against mental health care is in the rural areas. It's really underserved, just in general. So not just in Texas. I'm talking about just like
all over.
I've got a couple of friends that are in California in the Valley, a couple of places in the Valley, which is Northern California between Sacramento and Redding, which is where all the Napa Valley folks are. Well, there's a lot of money there, but not for the people that work there. And there is a horrible mental health services there, like just underrepresented. And so all of these poor areas are underrepresented. That's the reason why virtual therapy took off at the beginning, before COVID, like long before COVID. The only places that the insurance would pay for virtual therapy was in underserved areas, like East Texas or far West Texas or certain parts of the Valley in South Texas. Now you can do it everywhere. So that is something that's helping, I would say, because even one of the companies I work with, I have clients that are all over the state in Washington, Arizona, and Texas, and some of them are in like super poor like areas, and I get to work with them every week, which is really, they don't have to pay anything because it's part of their business, like it's part of their benefits kind of deal, and so that's part of the problem. Certain things are politicized to a certain extent, and then there's just so many underserved places. Kara, I don't know if they know about They probably do, but there is a tremendous amount of post-COVID funding right now for lots of healthcare
Really?
places. Yeah, like billions of dollars
Where do you, is
that
it
are
like
out
a
there.
grant? Is it grant funding
A
or?
lot of it's grants. You can look it up.
Okay.
Let me look into it.
Okay.
Um, my mom's actually working with a place that's gotten some funding from them. Let me find out about it. I'll send
Awesome.
it to you.
Thank you. I
Um,
appreciate that.
and I'm
One
sure there's still money available too, because they most of the time people just don't know about it.
my big, big idea, big dream is that, have you seen I know we're running out of time and I'm sorry I'm not trying to dominate your time here, but in Austin, there's a place where they use a 3D printer to build houses out of like cement housing or whatever. Anyway, it's supposed to be really, I don't know how cheap, they say cheap, but my idea is like if I had a big parcel of land and enough money to just do like these pods all around a central pod where
Hmm.
these ladies who need transitional housing, where, they could
Hmm.
have a therapist there, where that there's very little transitional housing for people who,
Yeah.
they can live independently, but they need a support system there. They need, immediate daily kind of even access
Hmm.
to
Medical
therapy or
care, mental health care,
mental health care. Yeah. So
social skill training. I mean, there's all kinds of things that are important. Yeah,
maybe we'll get there. I'm probably too old to see it happen, but I'm gonna quit being negative in that way. It could happen in 10 years, right? 10 or
sure,
15.
sure.
Yeah, but it's been cool. It's been a good experience. So
Good, good.
this whole
Well,
Amberton thing has, I
yeah,
think.
good. Well, I'm gonna ask you guys about a couple of questions about that here in a second. Let me shift gears for a second. Does anybody else have any questions about anything? Anything class related, license related, anything?
Yeah, I was wondering about this self-query. Maybe there's nothing really to know about it, but on the documentation checklist for licensure, there's a self-query report. So is that just you apply for it and they run a report on your background or something like that?
I'm assuming that's what it is.
Okay, all right.
It was super easy. It took me like 5 seconds. It's like your name, your social. They ask you if you've ever like lost your
It's a,
license or anything like that. And then you can so you do it, they give you the results, you download it, and then that's what you'll upload for your license.
it's a, it's kind of a new thing they've been doing, like the fingerprinting. I didn't have to get fingerprinted when I got my license, but then 4 years ago, I had to get fingerprinted. So you guys have to get fingerprinted, right? Everybody has to. Yeah.
Yeah, so this on the sheet I have, it says must be received in a sealed envelope from NPDB.
So they'll take they'll send you a certified copy through email that the board will take. So you it's $3 to do it, but yeah, no, they take a certified electronic one. So they'll email it to you, and then
Okay.
you just save it as a PDF and you'll upload it. Sorry, I've been like all over this whole getting my
Yeah, it sounds like I can't believe anything is only $3.
Yeah, so it's $3, but if you want them to mail you a copy, it's another $3. So I did both just so I had a paper copy and an electronic copy because that's
Every yeah,
how my brain works.
everything's about to be $200 and up. It's like going to Costco. Walk into Costco and hand them $500. Just walk in
Yes,
there, just hand
absolutely.
it to them. Everything's
Yes.
gonna be $200, right? Like my license for Washington was $580.
Wow.
That's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, one more thing. Somebody mentioned going sort of working part-time over a period of time. Like it might take, it has to take a minimum of a year and a half, right, to become
Mhm.
licensed. So is there any limit, like say if you're only working a couple of days a week, then it could take easily more than 3 years, right?
Yeah, I'm
I
assuming
haven't
it
done
would take.
I haven't
Yeah.
done the math, but so is there a downside to that? Or, I mean, does it
To
matter?
get, I
Taking
did the
forever.
math. I did the math on the minimum, like, and I think it came out to you have to do at least 15 hours a week to get it in within 5 years. So, like, it, the more seems like that's what it was. Like, I was trying to see, okay, if I'm the laziest I want to be, what is the minimum that I have to work to make sure I get it done? So I think
Yeah.
it was 15 a week.
Versus if you say I'm gonna be full time and see 30 clients a week, twice as fast, right? I mean, this is a numbers game. It's pretty easy to know. I mean, the one thing about it is if you just need to know how many sessions you need.
But what's really the downside of just, if it takes you 3 years, let's say, you're working, right? You have to be supervised, but, you're getting to practice what you've been studying to do.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of looking at it that way, like if because I have other interests too, like music. So I don't see myself working full time on as a counselor, but I've been thinking there's really not any downside of being an LPCA for a while.
I can
Unless,
answer, Richard, I can answer this question if you don't mind. Only downside is that your salary gonna be less. So after you fully licensed, your salary gonna get high a little bit.
Mhm.
If you work for somebody. Mhm.
And it takes you a long time to get your license.
Yeah.
And if you wait too long, you have to retake the exam, because I was working in psychiatry and one of the counselors, she's still LPCA, and I guess she was doing it part-time and took her almost 10 years, and they make her retake exam again.
Oh, wow. To get
So
it in 5 years, you have to average 11 and a half hours a week to get your 3,000 in. If you work every week, 11 and a half hours a week at 50.
So 5 hours is the time frame. If you go beyond that, you have to retake the exam.
5 years.
I'm sorry, 5. Yeah, 5 years. Okay, that I missed that tidbit.
Yeah,
All right.
you guys could take as long as you want. I mean, there's no like, there's no like I mean, I think it's personal preference. Some of you might want to work full time, some people might want to work part time. I mean, I think it's up to you what you want to do. Some people like to see certain types of clients for a little while and then change and see different kinds of clients. Some people like to see, all kinds of different clients at the beginning and kind of figure that out. It really just depends on what probably it also depends on how patient you want to be with it and how, because you're also paying for supervision. Let's say 5 years. You're also paying for supervision for 5 years as well. So that's part of it too, potentially.
Okay, so really it's just, it's you're paying for the supervision if you are, like say if I stayed on at Denton County, I probably wouldn't need to pay for supervision, but I wouldn't be making much money. But the only thing is the 5-year limit on the life on your test. Is that the only other practical downside? That I mean, I think I would think that within 5 years I would get my hours.
If you stay at MHMR, you'll get your hours pretty fast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but part-time.
That would be a long week though. Like, really, I mean, you're working, what is that, seeing like 30 clients a week or more?
Well, I would be.
I was asking Chris.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Well, yeah. If you work part time, it's MHMR. Some part-time jobs are 30 hours and some are 20. Depends on depends on what they do, but
But do they track out, like, if you've got a 30-hour, that has to be direct, right? So probably
depends on what
10
your
of that.
job is. Yeah, it depends on if you're an intake person, like you were talking about, Richard, or if you're a group person, like if you do a bunch of groups, or you know what I mean. Like it just depends on what you're going to do. I had one of my best friends went to MHMR. He was an LMFT, went to MHMR. He got his LPC in 18 months, and but it took him almost to 5 years for the LMFT because he was in HMR and it's mostly individual work, right? He did groups and individual and all the stuff. I've had other friends that just jumped right into the LMFT world, went to like a big practice where they, had tons of families and marriages and got their license in 2 years. It took me about 3. I did a kind of in between. But I was also the breadwinner of my family, so I was like, well, I can't jack around. I gotta, I think I worked at 3 different places at one point, just because you have to get it done. But that's up to you. If you guys, here's the thing. Here's what you need to think about. I think you need to think about how many right now, how many clients can you see and be effective, right? Like how many clients during the week can you see and be effective? And it might be, let's say, a little bit lower right now. Let's say potentially, maybe it's 10 or 15 right now that you can handle and you can be effective. You can see them. That's good. And maybe that increases, right? Like 6 months from now or a year from now. Like if I met with you guys a year from today, I said, hey, how many hours a week are you guys seeing clients? Probably the majority of you are seeing more clients, a year from now per week than you were when you started. Probably more than likely, right? So some of it is how many clients can I see in a week and be effective? Well, that also that depends on the types of clients, right? If you're seeing a ton of trauma, let's say, like a bunch of trauma cases, that's pretty heavy. Like if you see a bunch, like I did a bunch of marital cases when I first started, and that got really heavy. So I had to kind of dial that back. It just depends on what you can do. I can see way more clients now per week than when I first started. I see like between 30 and 40 a week now. But I can do that because I kind of have a system but when I started, I couldn't do that, and I won't do that forever. I've got a set amount of time I'm going to do that and then I'll kind of dial back. But does that make sense? Like some of this matters, like how many clients do you feel like you can see per week and be effective? And then just kind of go with that. Does that make like just kind of, that's what I would say. Start with that. You'll get your license. You'll get your hours. The mental health world is not going anywhere. I mean, we have tons of people that need help. That's not going to be a problem to get clients, I don't think. It just really depends on how quickly you want to go. Like Richard, to your point, for you, maybe it's not worth it to say, maybe you don't want to see 20 people a week. Maybe you want to see 10 and that's okay. You can do that. That's fine. Some other people are like, no, I got to see 25. Like I need to hit the ground running, and that's okay too. And this is a discussion that you probably should also have with your supervisor and let them also ask like, hey, especially when you start, right? Like taking care of yourself is really important. Like how do you do self-care and what's that look like? And, what kind of breaks do you get? And, that type, all of those things matter. Cause you got to balance you got to get your CEUs. You have to do a certain amount of, not in, indirect, you got to get your indirect hours. I mean, you got things you want to balance too. And so, once you get your rhythm, for the most part, people kind of find the rhythm fairly quickly and then you're fine. Does that all make sense? Hopefully.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions in general about anything? Because if I don't know, Sarah knows. Sarah's just going to answer them all. She's right in the midst of
Sorry.
everything.
I
No,
know
you're
I'm like
great.
having I'm so ready to be licensed. Like it's
Yeah.
like kind of a thing.
Awesome.
And my site like offered me a full-time job. So I feel that
Yeah.
pressure of
Yeah.
like, being like, I'm getting it done. I'm getting it done. So yeah,
No,
sorry.
you're great. You're
That's
great.
great.
No, listen, I don't have to be the expert in I don't know everything. I'm gonna tell you that. I got my license a long time ago and things have changed. There's been a lot of changes. Even the past 2 or 3 years, things have changed. So any other questions?
So to get your associate license, you have to already be have your supervisory agreement in place. And I have one now that's from Practicum 1, that's when it was set, but it was a certain type of agreement. Would it need to be redone, that agreement?
You need to turn in the paperwork for the sorry, I got a gnat in here. You need to turn in the paperwork for your supervisor now inside with your application. So it'll be it's the application for licensure is different than the practicum paperwork. There's two totally different things.
Okay, so this doesn't involve Amberton, right? It's just an
We are
agreement.
totally out of it. We are done with you. Leave us alone.
All right. So they, whatever agreement they, okay, I guess my question is there a special state form for that
Yes.
license? There is.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
The answer to any question about the state is always yes. There is a form somewhere you have to fill out, and
All right.
you'll have to do it over and over again. Absolutely,
Okay.
100%. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I will say this: I think the BHEC site is way better than it used to. When the site that they had before was really, really hard to navigate. This is at least a little bit easier, I think. I would say. To get, and they have everything you need you should be able to find right there. LPC and LMFT. I haven't talked about LMFTs very much because you guys have, if anyone hears LMFT, you have one more practicum anyway to go. My opinion is the LMFT world is easier to navigate than the LPC world. Just that's from my experience. So they're a lot more responsive and because there's only about 4,000 LMFTs in Texas. I think a little over 4,000. So it's not very many, actually. So, okay. I do have a couple of things I want to ask about. And before I do that, I need to step out real quick because my dog is going crazy over here. So talk amongst yourselves, and I'm going to be right back in like 2 minutes.
Can I trauma dump real quick about the NCE? I went to take my test on Wednesday. I was at the Pearson Testing Center. I was at question 148 out of 200, and it kicks me out of the test. And it kept kicking me out of the test. And then eventually they're like, hey, yeah, you're just going to have to reschedule and come back. So
no.
I'm so sorry.
Oh,
it's okay. It's more study time, right? That's what I'm going to tell myself.
You're
The
so
person,
positive.
I've had a few days. The person next to me, she was doing her real estate test. She got all the way through. It would not let her submit to get her results. They kept her there and they were going to try to get IT to fix it. But so yeah, it could always be worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
wow. Which center were you at?
I'm in Bryan, Texas, so it was the one here.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I'm going on the 13th to Carrollton.
Well, that's one of the reasons I didn't take it from my own computer is a friend told me that that's one of the problems is getting kicked out, and supposedly it doesn't happen that often at the site. So that's kind of a bummer, but at least you got to see how the questions are. Like,
yeah.
that's a positive.
Yeah, so I've been in IT for the last 10 years and like seeing the errors that were happening, like I'm pretty sure it was their servers that host like, certain people, because there was a cluster of us, it was 3 people in the whole, everybody else was fine, but 3 people in that testing center were getting that treatment. And apparently it was like everywhere else too. Then it was air quotes fixed. And then we were all trying to get back in it and it would kick us back out again. I think it's because too many people were trying to get back into this one server, this one system, and it
Oh.
was not handling it well. So, yeah, it was a fun time, but I did get to see how the questions were formatted. There were a few that was like, okay, this is what people were talking about with the best choice type of question.
Yes, those were
They were tough, but I actually took one of them, talked to my supervisor about it, and we did not come to a general consensus of like, and it's specifically around groups and allowing subgrouping and how do you handle that. So there's some that's just, it seems like there's multiple right answers. It's just which one is the most right. So I feel like it depends on who you talk to.
Mhm.
Sorry, I'm laughing, but it's really funny because they're asking these questions like this, application-based questions mainly, that are still also very subjective, not objective. So that's what throws people off about. Most exams you take are objective mostly, but this one's like, John, like you were talking about. I bet you and I could have the same conversation. We might come with the same, different answer.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I was in group supervision and I brought that question out.
Yeah.
And there were three different answers.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. The upside of the test, the score, let me say this, the upside of how they score it, they do a good, I think they do a good job of scoring it because that scoring is not necessarily black and white. It can change based on what people are scoring on it. Like if the mean moves up or down, that affects the scoring. The only downside there is I had a professor at ACU that scored a 92 on the LMFT exam. So whoever took this test when she took it, that moved the mean up, right? That moved everything up. So people potentially could have, like I think in general, you can get like a 73 or 4. You can do that and still pass, depending on the mean, right? Depending on what people do. So that's the upside of the scoring, but it is a tough. The tests are tough, but this is the last time you have to take it.
yeah. I hope so. I hope I don't have it again.
Yeah.
You missed the part where I got kicked out of mine and I had to, like, I was 148 questions out of 200, and then the system crashed and kicked me out, so I have to reschedule and take it again. So
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
fun
They
stuff.
didn't just give you a score on the 148.
No, that one, they couldn't get my test to like let me back in, and
Uh-huh.
they were very like it needed to finish it out before it could submit and get any score. So yeah, it was fun stuff.
That's bad. Oh, I'm sorry. That sucks.
All
I'm
good.
more scared now than I was before this the Zoom class.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Richard. I did
What?
not mean to.
Yeah.
No,
What scary
I
things
just
can we
was-
bring up to freak everyone out? Let's think of all the scary, anxiety-provoking things.
Are you trying
That
to
would be
keep us there
one.
with the feeling?
Yeah, that would definitely be one for sure. 100%. Yeah.
Can I
Yeah.
add my 3 cents, please? In psychiatry, I had two people who just passed the test, and they say the trial exam was much harder than actual exam. So that what helped them.
Yeah. Depending on what you study and things like that. I think Sarah might have said this. There's an app, right? There's something now that's app based that you can take like practice or whatever.
Pocket
the
prep.
purple.
Pocket prep.
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
And it's purple and it says behavioral health.
Yeah.
That one, the Mometrics practice test, is very close to like the look and the feel of what I saw in the room. And it's a 200 question, and you can go back and get your, which ones you got wrong and an explanation to it. So that one's a good practice test to take.
Cool.
I don't think that was the name of mine. It's the one that comes along with the purple book, the encyclopedia. What is it called, Sarah? The purple book I did the same one you did. But there's an app associated with that, and that's the one I did, and it has like where you can take all these practice tests, but as soon as you click an answer, it tells you whether it's right or wrong. So, and then it gives you a detailed explanation of the right answer, so you can kind of
It's-
keep Is
That's
that
how
the
mine.
same thing? Oh, it
I
may
think
be
so.
the same one. It may be.
I
Yeah.
have that
There's
on,
like a, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Richard.
I have that on Kindle where the purple book, encyclopedia is on the Kindle and I use my computer. It doesn't, it's not like it just gives you a test.
Yeah.
But it explains, like you were saying, Kara, each answer, you know, like why it was, with some humor too. It explains
Yeah, it's pretty
why it
good.
was right or wrong. So I've just been working. That's been what I've mainly been doing. I didn't take that other exam,
So
the practice exam. Is
yeah,
that what you're
the
talking about? The one from the one?
metrics, that one is good just to get a feel of what the test is like. The benefit of the Pocket Prep Behavioral Health is it also gives you a bunch of stats based on like there's 850 questions total that you can go through. And then it breaks them down into the subject scores to let you know what areas that you're weaker on: professional practice ethics, intake assessment, diagnosis, areas of clinical focus. So that way you can go back and make your studying a little bit more targeted to the areas that you're weak. I think it was like $20. But there are tons of people that have gone just the purple book route and been able to pass it just fine. You don't have to do this. This is just for people like me that maybe worry a little bit too much and want to be double darn sure.
Yeah, I would say up until about before COVID, most people just study the purple book. Or if you're in LMFT world, there's a comparable study guide it used to be in a notebook. I think they've got it bound now. That's all people would study before COVID. After COVID, there's more like apps and more practice tests and things like that. So you do have a lot more um, chance to take practice tests and kind of see what types of questions are on the test. It's always been application based. The test has always been that way. So let me ask a quick question real quick. Are any of you, and I'm not even looking for a certain number, would any of you be willing to come back to my practicum 2 class, let's say in the summer, and talk about your test experience, like getting your license? Because I find that it's helpful for students. Like, would anybody, if anybody would be willing to do that, if you could send me I'm not going to remember right now. Just an email if you're willing to do that, especially like the first class, because I think my first class is in June, like June 20th or something like that. But if anybody would be willing to do that, that'd be super helpful. I've found that if we can kind of network together, it's really helpful for people. And so anyone that's willing to do that, that'd be awesome. And I'm not looking for, like, if it's 10 of you, that's awesome. I mean, the more we can get, the better, I would say. So anyone willing to do that, just send me an email. If you send me a message, I'll, like in the chat, I'll forget. But just send me an email if you don't mind. That'd be super helpful. I'd really appreciate it. Because we need study materials and hey, here's what I did to get my license, and here's some things to think about, or here's how I found my supervisor. Like, these are all good questions that the longer I do this, the farther I get from when I got mine, and I find that my information is not as helpful as like what people are going through now. And so if you guys could do that, that'd be awesome. Um, that'd be super, super helpful. So I'm gonna transition to something real quick. I always ask questions about, well, I ask these questions with the practicum 2 students. And I'm going to actually take notes too, uh, while you guys are talking. I got to get my notes up here. I feel like now I'm about to be in a session. I'm going to take notes while I'm in session here.
Was gonna go with you, but I'm not gonna go. What's wrong?
Okay. I want to ask, and this won't be hard. This is going to be super easy. I do want to know a couple of things, and I'm always asking questions about how we can make things better and in your experience. How many of you, what year did you guys enter the program? Either LMFT or LPC? I'm just curious.
You want us to sound it out or
Yeah.
write in the chat? Oh,
No,
2020.
just 2020. Anybody before that?
Yeah, I took a job in Chicago for 8 years, so I had to postpone my studies in the middle of it.
Okay.
So yeah, I I don't remember the exact year, but it was a decade ago when I started.
Okay. Gotcha. So was everyone here around 2020-ish? Either
2020.
before or after?
I was 21.
21
Okay.
as well.
21.
Okay. So, okay. One of the reasons why I'm asking, I'm assuming some of you took some in-person classes, but then probably mostly online. If you started around 2020-ish, maybe probably not before, but because we've always taught classes online and in person. We've always done that since the beginning, but we lean more heavily in person before COVID. So, and after COVID, we've kind of made, some shifts. In some classes like this class, I think it's fine to do online because everybody's spread out all over the place and it's hard to get to Garland campus at 6:30 at night, after you've been working all day. So some classes like this is not a big deal. Do you guys, and this is all just your opinion. I want just your opinion. Do you guys have a preference or do you think one way is better one way or another? And that could be based on classes that you took. I'm just curious to see what you guys think about taking in-person classes versus doing it virtually.
I loved my in-person. I prefer in-person. Like, loved it.
I also prefer in person, but exams are too stressful for me in person.
I like the hybrid, but I really got a lot from my in-person classes and I really did enjoy them a lot.
Yeah, I felt like I got more out of the in-person classes, but because of my situation of living where I do 3 hours away and everything, I definitely needed the virtual classes for me to be able to complete this program. But in terms of material actually gained and retained, definitely in person was much more impactful.
I like both, and of course, there was some times when the in-person was not practical at all, like when I was in Chicago, and I was able to take some classes, and I thought the remote classes worked very well for me, and there were certain classes that it was, it didn't seem to matter that much that I was remote. I think the classes that involve a lot of discussion and interaction with others, then that some of them didn't really seem to need that, and it was just a matter of doing your assignments, writing your papers, and so those were fine without meeting in person, I thought.
I prefer in person, but the hybrid classes work best for me for my living situation.
Yeah.
And I too believe in the hybrid. I enjoyed going in person just to actually connect with other people in the class and kind of a networking type of thing. So for me, that was beneficial just to kind of meet people that were doing the same thing that I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Can y'all, and anyone again can answer, and Richard mentioned this. Is there benefit, like at certain classes, like what classes you feel like are better in person? And this again, this is your opinion, whatever you think, versus some classes can be virtual. Like this class can be virtual to me. This is easy virtual class. But do you feel like there's some classes that are better in person, or you feel like you either wish you would have taken it in person, or you took it in person and you're glad you did?
Group therapy. The group class I thought was, it was important to be able to break out and do some practical role plays and stuff.
And I agree with Richard. Yeah, having the group therapy is, in person was very beneficial. I guess a class that I wish was in person that I took during COVID that was remote was crisis counseling. I would have really liked to have had crisis counseling in person to have more of a dialogue.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I was
I
going to
think
say crisis counseling.
Go ahead. Yeah, I think the theme of like if it's a particular type that could be more practical, like whether it's crisis, group, family therapy, or maybe just like kind of, I guess like a therapy specific one that could be more practical where you could do and like mock stuff in class would be more beneficial. But stuff like that's just really knowledge gain, lifespan development, stuff like that. Ethics, I think those can all be the virtual model and you can get what you need from them. But the stuff where it's actually going to be applied, it's nice to be able to go in and practice some of that in person with people and have some of that out.
I'm teaching my first in-person class in 3 years in the summer.
You'll do great.
And I don't. Does it matter if it's every week you go in person, or if it was like on Saturday where you go 5 times?
I don't know. I don't think it really matters, like last summer, I took a class and we were there just every other Saturday up in the Frisco area. And that was beneficial. That was good because we had so much classwork to do also. But just the instruction, having in-person instruction was just very beneficial. Just having that group and interacting with each other and able to bounce off ideas from each other. It was really good.
When I was working in Chicago, we did, March of 2020, we were all sent home and did everything on Zoom for 2 years. So, it's hard for me to judge what, in a way, because I learned that we could function as an organization entirely on Zoom. So, I think, you can, I was very surprised at how efficiently we were able to do our jobs. And I just got used to it. So I'm comfortable with hybrid and even all remote just from that experience.
Would anyone not do Amerton now if it was all remote? And
Yeah,
just so you know, most programs are mostly remote now. That's
Yes.
just partly how
Yes.
it is.
So my sister is a therapist up in Massachusetts and she teaches at a local university, and they're trying to start a master's program in counseling and they want to do it all online. And so we've had this discussion a lot about, she's like really against it, that there are certain things, right, in person that are better, but also getting to know your students as you're putting them out there. Like that's kind of her big holdout is I'm not going to really know these people and I'm sending them out to like a practicum and I'm sending them out to internship. So I think like you get to know, like, yeah, if it was all online, I would be a little hesitant to do a program that I was never going to be like in person, like meeting other students with the teachers, that kind of, does that make sense?
And I agree with Sarah too.
I don't think it.
I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I don't think it would have stopped me from taking the program if it was all virtual. When I started, it probably would have actually drawn me even more to it. But having gone through those in-person classes, really saw the value of it. I think that on face value, people are going to look for that as much virtual as possible because it's the easiest, and they're just trying to get through it as easy. But I think there's a hindsight view of like, oh no, those in-person classes were great. So I don't think it's really going to impact more people from coming in.
Okay. What is one or two areas you feel like Amberton really excels in, or what you, from your experience, like what was really the most helpful, or what was the best part for you?
Flexibility. To me, it was you're working full time the entire time, and being able to adjust my schedule. Early on, I went over, when I was first considering it, I went over to UT Arlington, and I was asking them about their program. And I told them I'm working full time, and they said, "Oh, well, you'll have to quit your job." And I said, "Well, I don't think I'm going to do that." And then, Amberton was the program that seemed very realistic to be able to do what I was doing and still work on my degree. So that was the big factor for me. And it was reasonable as well in terms of finances.
Yeah, I'll second that. And to be completely honest, it was also that accepted my less than stellar GPA for my undergrad because I may have been in a little different life stage at that time, a little bit of a turd head, but the flexibility, the ability to meet me where I'm at, because I'm live 3 hours away. I've got a family with 3 littles, and but I was able to make it through this and keep up my full-time job and do stuff. The other benefit was that all of the teachers are still practicing, and knowing that and be able to get good practical information from them has been super, super helpful. And it's kind of knowing that they're not distant from it, that this is still very much their real everyday life. And so I think that
I agree. I agree with that. I came to appreciate that as I got into the program, and I do value that. So thanks.
Yeah, the teachers have been like, every single professor I've had has just been amazing. Like the communication, any questions, like the response time. I transferred over from commerce. I started my master's at commerce. I did my undergrad there, and I transferred over because it just wasn't you know what, there was this gut feeling about it. Like the teachers weren't great. I wasn't getting a lot of communication. It was like pulling teeth, it just wasn't. So after that first 9 hours, had to be like, I have to make a decision. So I tell everybody, like, I started at commerce, I came over here, and it has been amazing. So.
When people ask me about Amberton, I've noticed that like some of the people I've met over at Denton County, they're going to UNT or Texas Women's University, or and they say, well, what's where did you go? I say Amberton. What's Amberton? The name recognition doesn't seem to be very high, at least up in Denton, but I've always felt like this is a very strong program, and I feel good about the program the professors and people also, they ask me, well, is that all online? And I say, well, no, it's hybrid. There's classroom experiences too. And I do feel that, when I'm saying that, I feel good about the fact that it's not just all online, because I don't know, somehow maybe I feel like that cheapens it a bit if it's just an online program and you don't have any in-person classes and experiences. So I think, it would be good for Amberton to keep some measure of in-person activities going.
And Dr. Berdard, I just want to kind of reiterate what Richard was saying. Like the first question is, well, which school do you go to? And I explained to them, and then the second question is, oh, is it all online? And I'm like, well, no, I've got in-person classes too. So and I mean, I'm not going to put my own opinion on that, but there's definitely some kind of opinion out there. I don't know.
Well, just for you guys' information, we are, like, test score wise, we're one of the top 2 universities in the state. Just FYI, we actually have more people go through our program and take the exam than most other programs. We're not really hurting for students. We have a ton of our counseling programs are massive here at Amberton. So, I mean, we're not really hurting necessarily. But we survive on alumni talking about the program. That's really where we get students. And so this is why this feedback is so important to me. Because I'm a professor and I talk about it too. What's Amberton? I hear it all the time. Where is Amberton? When I tell them, they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, that sounds great.
So I do have a question. So the girl that works at the front desk at my site wants to go get her master's in counseling, right? So I was like crazy. I was just like, I've had the best experience. Walking into my internship, I just felt so prepared. Like I was nervous and like all of that, but I felt very prepared, education wise. So she was asking me, and her holdback was, well, it's not K-CREP. And how do I respond to that? Right? Because for me, I don't care about the K-CREP. Like if I can pass my exam, I can get my license like everybody else. Right? It, to me, my friends at Commerce are K-CREP and they're miserable. So that's kind of how I explained it, right? I was like, my exam, I'm going to be licensed. When I'm out there working, nobody's asking me if I went to a K-CREP program. So is that like the best way to answer that?
So here's the deal. The K-CREP will only matter really if you go out of state, if you go somewhere else to a state where they potentially might want that designation. We don't have to be K-CREP certified because we have certification through in a different way here at Amberton. So if you stay in Texas, for sure, that's not going to matter. And we will be just as competitive. And our students will be just as ready as any other program. So that part won't matter as much. I think
I thought we were K-CREP.
No.
But when we went from the 48, so like when I moved to Chicago, I had finished all my academic classes and then it was changed to be a 60-hour program. And I thought at that time it was changed to 60 to comply with K-CREP.
It changed to 60 to comply with the state mandate that it be 60. So it has nothing to do with K-CREP. K-CREP has done a great job of advertising throughout all the nation, basically, to say you need to be K-CREP certified. We looked into it. It would take quite a bit to do. Take quite a bit to do it. We'd have to make some pretty significant changes to our program to do it. So we decided not to go that route. So you can feel free to tell people, yeah, if you want to go that route, awesome. You can go that route. You're going to get the same education. The classes are the same. You're going to get the same experience. It really only matters if you leave the state, like if you're going to go somewhere else. That's really where, and even then, what that would mean is you might have to take a couple extra classes if you wanted to be K-CREP.
When you say that it would be significant changes, mean, all that additional 12 hours, I thought pretty much covered the landscape of, but is there certain activities or reporting that has to happen to be K-CREP that goes way beyond what's just offered as the education program?
Yeah. The short answer is yes. The long
Okay.
answer is a longer discussion that's not really not important,
Okay, all right.
but it would significantly change a lot of things. And so I think it's a valid concern people have. I hear that too from people. Like on the LMFT side, okay, K-CREP's not as important because we're not COAMFTA accredited either. COAMFTA is the equivalent to K-CREP on the LMFT side. Well, we're still getting the same exact experience and being able to do the same jobs as everywhere else. And so we don't have that. But that's, I don't think that should, I mean, I think people maybe get scared about that for some reason, but they probably shouldn't. I don't think,
So
but
does
that's
that,
just me.
so once you get your Texas license though, regardless of where your degree came from, you can still get reciprocal licenses in some states, can you
It,
not if you're not?
so that's a great question. So there's a couple things that are going on right now in the LPC world. So the social work world right now, there's basically reciprocation nationwide. The LPC world's trying, psychologists have done that already. Social workers have basically done it. The LPCs are trying to do that. The problem is going to be probably what that's going to mean is you have to have a license for X amount of time. Most states say you need to have a license for, I'm making this up because every state's different, but you might have to have a license for a minimum of fully licensed for a minimum of 3 years. No matter what you do, if you go to another state, they always want your transcript. You're going to have to do your transcript. You have to give them the score for your exam. Sometimes you have to take another exam, like I'm studying for the California. You have to take a California exam to get licensed in California. So that's the only state that does that, actually. No one else does that. Some states are easy to get reciprocal license in, like Washington. New Mexico's been very friendly. North Carolina is pretty friendly. But if you don't have a K-CREP, if you don't have a transcripts from a K-CREP school, they might want you to take extra classes or might want you to do something else. So some of that, there's not reciprocation across the board because every state has different requirements, which is totally stupid. Doesn't make any sense, but that's just literally that's what it is. So when we think about, okay, I want to get like when I was going to get licensed in Arizona, for example, I had to do all kinds of stuff. Like I'm getting renewed right now. I've got to take 2 other CEU classes on top of everything else I've already done. So every state's got all these little, kind of little requirements that they have. So that's why people are worried about the K-CREP thing. To be honest with you, I don't think it's going to matter because you're still going to have to jump through hoops no matter what. So, anyway, that's my 2 cents about that.
Hey, Dr. Bedard, may I ask? So since you're doing that, those other CEUs or other things, does it have to come, or other classes, do those classes come from a K-CREP certified school, or can they be from just a university?
Well, they're not classes, they're just CEUs.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Okay, thanks.
Nah, they're just CEUs. Like you just getting CEUs now is super, super, super easy. It's not hard at all. Actually, we're going to probably start doing CEU training at Amerton. I'm pretty sure we will within the next year. I think we will.
Well, where I've been working, they have, I think I've mentioned to this group that there was an extensive amount of training. I spent a month and a half in training. Would those be count as CEUs going forward if you get a certificate?
I don't know. Good question. It depends on if when you take a training, you need to find out if CEUs are included or not. You should know that at the beginning because not every training, Yeah, not every training is a CEU. You can't get CEUs until you get your associates anyway, so
Right,
it
right.
won't really
So,
matter.
so I was just taking them as a matter of new employee orientation and, you know, and all that. And becoming a qualified mental health professional, as they call it.
Well, that's what we're about to change all our wording to here.
Really?
Yeah. So, okay, let me do one more thing. And you guys can always email me questions too. Don't hesitate to do that. I want to remind everyone that, you know, I'd love to know how everyone's doing. You can always just shoot me a message and tell me, like, if you passed the exam or you got a job or whatever. I like to know where people are too, because I do, because I can do a ton of referrals to people. I still get a lot of clients that come to me for different things that I can't take. So I love to know where people are working. And I'm virtual, so I work all over the state. Um, uh, One of the things that I wanted to say, and I said one of these things earlier, if anyone's willing to come and talk to students, that'd be great. Love to have you do that. The other thing is don't forget that you are ready for whatever's coming, whatever that is. You are ready for it. You might be nervous about it or anxious, and that's okay. You should be, because that's just your body, you know, physically getting you ready for something. Every one of you is ready for whatever comes next, because think about all the things you've gotten through to get to where you are. So that automatically tells you, like, if you started in 2019 or 2020 or 2021, think of all the things you've gone through in that time frame to get to where you are now. That should tell you that whatever comes next, you can get through. You can figure it out. You'll make it work. You should be able to do that. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I think it's important for you guys to look back every once in a while and see what you've accomplished. Because when we look at accomplishments that have actually happened, we're not looking back and going, oh, I wish I would have done that. We're looking back at black and white results, like, this is what I did. I did this. Unfortunately, John's going to look back and go, I took 148 questions of a test that I got kicked out of, and then I went back and took it again and I passed. That's black
Thank
and
you for
white
that.
proof that you're going to do it, right? We need to, as human beings, we need reminders of what we've accomplished. So I want to encourage you to don't forget to do that. Everything that you've accomplished. How many papers have you written? How many exams have you taken? How many pages of books have you read? How many classes have you sat through? How many sessions have you gone through already? Think that's all the things you've already done, right? That means you've already accomplished. Think about all the accomplishments that came with that. That means that's all that is getting you ready for what's next. And that's important. Just don't forget that. That's very, very, very important, I think. So you're ready for it. It's going to be great. Now, I know one or two of you have another practicum, so you're still ready, but you got another practicum. That's okay. The last thing I was going to say, and I meant to say this at the beginning, I just forgot. I did get some questions about, like, extended practicum. The extended practicum is for people that want to keep seeing clients while they wait on their license. Not everybody does that. Some people stop seeing clients while they wait on their license, and that's fine too. You can do that. It just covers you while you wait on your license. So some people take the extended practicum just so they can kind of keep seeing people. That's totally up to you. It's really your decision. It doesn't mean you haven't graduated. It just means you're using that to kind of keep seeing clients. So when we first started the extended practicum back then, you couldn't take the exam until you graduated. That's why we started it. And it's a little different now. So I don't think that the turnaround time for getting your license is super long anymore. I think it's fairly quick. So you should be able to get it fairly quickly. And I know some of you are waiting on that to start at your actual site, which is great, but you'll get it. I think their turnaround is pretty quick. So the extended practicum is there for if you're going to keep seeing clients, you want to jump in that class. And I know some people start it and then get their license and then drop the class. You can do that. That's what a lot of people do. So anyway, Any other questions about anything before we are done?
I do have one more, and I
Yep.
promise I'm done. And it has to do with what you just said. So my site, they hired me on full time. I'm PHP, IOP, and with adolescents. So she said that she wants me to do, she knows I can't see clients, but she wants me to do skills. And I didn't know if I'm allowed to do skills, right? Because they'll do like the therapy time and then we do like skills. Am I allowed to do that? It makes me nervous because like it was like embedded in my head that like I cannot do anything without my license. So I don't know if I need to do extended practicum just to cover myself.
I would, if I was you, I would not do anything that would potentially put your license at harm.
Yeah, I agree. I know it made me really nervous when she was like, "Oh, you can start June 3rd." And I was like, "Oh, I won't be licensed by then." And she was like, "Oh no, you can do skills." And I was like,
And I know people say that, and that's probably true-ish, but personally to me, I would never do anything that would like potentially I could lose my license before you get it.
Yeah, and she's my director at the site, she's an LCSW. So I maybe, right, she's coming from like a different side of things, like maybe in social work, I don't know. But I wasn't comfortable, so I'll probably just do extended practicum to cover myself to make sure.
I would, and here's the other thing. Before you get for anybody, before you get your associate, you can't count the hours anyway. Right?
Exactly. Yes.
So, I mean,
yeah, so I'm taking over the current therapist who runs group, she's leaving. So I think they're just trying to like transition, right, me into getting up there, doing all my orientation, getting like officially onboarded. I think that's kind of her thought process.
Sure.
Which I understand. But yeah, I'm like, oh, I don't know that I even want to be in the room with any of these adolescents without covering myself.
I wouldn't personally, that I wouldn't do that. And here's the other thing. You might get your license pretty quick. I mean, you might get your associate license pretty quickly.
Yeah. I had a friend who graduated in December. She said it was like 3 weeks from
Yeah,
application to license.
yeah,
So
I don't think it's that long. It used to be 6 or 8 that they're moving a lot because everything's online now. You can, which is really, really helpful. So, I know there's a lot of people that have in the past done coaching, like instead of counseling and done coaching, and the board does not like that. I just can tell you that they really frown on anything you do that potentially could be a risk, and they've stopped some people from getting licenses before because of some activity. So you just want to be careful and cover yourself, and that's why we offer the class. I mean, that's the reason why it's there, so to cover you. All right.
One question about the extended practicum. This might sound like a silly question, but do you have to pay for that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it's just like all the other. It's technically just like all the other classes.
Okay.
Not to sound like I'm trying to take advantage of the system and whatnot, but also you mentioned dropping it. I know that if you drop by a certain date, you can get.
Yep.
I don't want to put it all out there black and white, and I don't hope that that is a negative thing, but yeah, I'm actually considering that now that that's been out there. Is that legit, or is that like frowned upon?
Well, I mean, it's just like dropping any class, right? I mean, it's the same thing. I don't think it's a bad. I mean, it's not bad or good. It just is. Like if you take the class and then you get your license, like Sarah was talking about. Let's say you get your license June 3rd, and the class hasn't, or the class starts. I think June. I think we start the 9th. I can't remember if I'm saying this right. The 9th or maybe the 17th. I can't remember, but. And you get your license and you're a week into the class, like the semester, and then you drop it. I mean, you drop it. That's okay. Just like any other class. Same thing.
Yeah.
Am I giving you enough information to read between the lines?
Yeah,
saying?
there's just the part of me being the, Karen of like, well, especially seeing that you were the one that's doing it, if that affects your bottom line.
Doesn't affect me. I don't
Okay.
care.
Okay.
I talked to extended practicum students like twice. I sent an email at the beginning, and then I check on them halfway through, and then that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that
It
sounds like a
doesn't.
good
Yeah,
way
it
to
doesn't
cover it.
affect me. I'm not worried about it. I want whatever you guys need to do what works for you. I'm just saying don't do something that you could potentially like get in trouble doing. That's all. That's all I'm saying. So, I mean, I could tell you what I would do, but it's being recorded, so I won't.
Then I'll say what I'm gonna do because I'm worried about it taking longer. Is I'll register for it. I'll take it. And if I get my license, I'll drop it.
Yeah, and people do that all the time. Yeah. Like I said, the reason why we had it is just because you couldn't take the exam early like you can now. Like, has everyone here taken the exam or at least scheduled to take the exam? I'm pretty sure pretty much everyone has. So,
I'm scheduled to take the exam in July. I was giving myself a few extra months to study.
yeah, yeah, that's okay. That's okay. You can take it whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. All right. Now, unless someone wants to come to my house and help me start unpacking boxes, then I would say y'all go do something else and enjoy your Saturday. And like I said, keep in touch. If you need any help, let me know.
Hey,
And
Chris,
yeah,
sorry to keep everyone but do you remember Matt Marshall? Did y'all play golf together? He's older, so maybe not.
I don't remember him.
He's on. Okay, never mind then. He's moved back home after
Oh, okay.
40 years. I thought maybe you knew him from playing golf because he was on the golf team. Sorry,
I don't
guys.
rec-
Never mind. Have a
No, it's
great.
okay. Me and Kara used to babysit me long ago. So I'm just
Thank you for
dating you and me at the same time.
Yes, I really dated me. So it's all good though. Y'all,
Dr.
good luck
Bedard.
everybody on everything.
Yeah,
All right. Good luck to you as well. Will you be at the graduation?
I will be at the graduation.
Okay. I look forward to seeing you then.
I will be there.
Will all the different schools sit together, like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
oh, cool. That'll be
Yeah,
good.
everybody be together, and it's usually I don't know how many people be there, but it's over in an hour. It's not long. It's pretty quick.
Oh, there's other schools?
No, other departments.
That's
Oh,
what I
okay. I'm
meant.
about to say. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what I
yeah,
meant.
yeah. Like
Okay.
business and counseling
Right.
and family
I mean, that
studies,
makes
all
sense.
that.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay.
All right, you guys have
All
a good
right.
weekend, and
Hey, Chris.
see you later.
Have
Have
a
a
good
great
one.
weekend, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye.